Hello, everybody, and welcome to Samba TV's State of the Viewership webinar. My name is Cole Strain, and I'm the VP and Head of Research and Development at Samba TV, where I research viewership behavior and ads effectiveness.
And I'm Rebecca Fine, Associate Director of Marketing Insights and Content here at Samba, where I dig into TV viewership and advertising trends to shed light on how the industry is changing.
Today, we're going to dig into some of the latest viewership trends after analyzing over 46 billion hours of linear and streaming viewership from the second half of last year. And we're going to share some tips for optimizing your 2024 marketing strategy. But before we dive in, just a couple of light administrative items. For the first, we are going to welcome all of your questions. So please submit them through the Zoom Q&A feature at any time during the webinar, and we've saved a few minutes to address these questions live at the end. And number two, there will be live polling, and then this is very fun, so please participate. You will see a prompt come up on Zoom with a multiple choice question, and you know what to do from there. Before we get into the insights, I want to spend just a moment talking about Samba TV, a quick introduction, and how we get our data. Samba TV is a pioneer in automatic content recognition, or ACR technology. This ACR tech allows us to capture viewership directly from over 20 different brands of TVs globally. When you combine this first-party ACR data we capture with our third-party partnerships with set-top box providers, we collect viewership from 48 million global TV devices. To round out this robust viewership behavior, we also partner with HarrisX. It's a globally recognized consumer survey provider to help us understand both on and off-screen insights. There are two things I'd really like everyone to understand here when it comes to the Samba data. So first, Samba TV is the only independent TV ACR company, meaning we're not owned by a single TV brand. Instead, we partner with over 20 brands globally. The diversity of TV brands is important because it helps ensure our data is truly representative, meaning we capture data from all combinations of TV feature sets as well as all TV price points. And the second thing, all of Samba TVs analyzed are 100% from opted-in households. And when folks opt in, they're opting in directly to Samba TV. Now, with all of this opted-in and representative data, Samba has built a business that allows brands and publishers to reach households based on ad exposure or TV consumption habits. We've also built a suite of measurement products to help show the cross-screen impact of your advertising impacts. And as you're about to see today, we also generate insights on linear, streaming, and advertising consumption behavior, and produce cool studies like this that will help us all keep up with the rapidly changing viewership landscape. All right, so that's Samba TV. That's how we get our data. Let's hand it over to Becca to talk about some of the big picture TV moments.
All right, thank you, Cole. So we saw a lot of big changes in the TV landscape during the second half of 2023 with bundles and consumers responding to AVOD offerings and growth across FAST services. So let's take a look at some of the most notable trends. So looking at the average daily reach of linear, you can see that in 2021 and 2022, there was a trend of viewership spiking in the second half of the year with summer shows and then sports and holiday content in the fall. But that trend was largely absent in 2023. We saw linear reach was down 4% year over year and fairly flat with the first half as the audience ages out, and you can see less than 40% of Gen Z has cable, which honestly feels kind of high to me given all I know about Gen Z, which is mostly from TikTok. But with all of this, advertisers need to place even more value in alternative platforms like CTV and digital to reach these audiences who are clearly shifting away. And then on the flip side of the whole linear fiasco, we see that OTT hours viewed continue to increase. This was interesting in the context of the actors and writers strikes and how there was actually less content released in 2023 than 2022. But the content that was released, people just couldn't get enough of. Maybe it's the fact that what felt like 20 seasons of Love is Blind were released. I don't know. But you can see there was a big spike between Q2 and Q3, and also that the gap between traditional and connected TV is projected to close even more over the next few years. So we do a lot of talking about people moving away from linear, but we also want to be able to answer, where are they going? And we see that the answer is oftentimes FAST platforms like Freevee and Tubi, as well as AVOD platforms. We see that about 1/3 of US streamers watch FAST, and also across streaming platforms like Netflix and Disney Plus that recently released ad-supported tiers, people are showing willingness to watch those ads in exchange for lower fees. All of this is to say that people are embracing FAST and AVOD as alternatives not just to linear, but also to traditionally SVOD platforms. And given that they are now ad-supported, that does give advertisers a lot of new opportunities to reach them.
Streaming viewership is up, but so is subscription cycling. So what is a streaming platform to do to keep its hard-won subscribers from moving away the moment the final credits start to roll on their favorite program? We're going to talk about advertising. We're going to talk about binge watching. We're going to ask if the actor in the stock image is actually just me from behind. Answers to this and more in this next section on the streaming wars. As we get into the streaming data, we can see that OTT viewership is still on the rise, with 100 million households reporting that they are now streaming content in H2. However, our appetite for juggling multiple streaming services remains pretty low, with about half of households watching 2 or fewer streaming services in the back half of the year. And in a particularly counterintuitive trend, every streaming platform saw increased churn rates compared to that same period last year. It's quite a feat with more households than ever streaming. Now, it's possible that FAST and ad-supported tiers are providing a convenient way to meet the viewership needs without the need for a monthly subscription, but we have also very much increased our comfort level with subscription cycling, which is the idea of subscribing to a platform to watch the pieces of original content that appeal to you the most, canceling that subscription, and then moving those subscription dollars to another platform. Millennials lead the pack here with 76% being interested in sub-cycling, but nearly every buying generation has displayed a desire to change up their streaming footprint in the next 6 months. Now, streaming originals release cycle was a little stymied in H2 of last year. The prolonged writer's strike started to show in the releases of new original programs. But even with less content coming out, we continue to see the surprising trend that about half of overall viewers will only watch one of the top 50 streaming originals from the platform in the half. These are one-hit watchers. They come in, watch a single program from the top 50, and then watch nothing else from the platform. Netflix does have actually a pretty comfortable position here, with only about 30% of its households displaying this one-hit watched behavior. But we do see the top shows from this one-hit watched population were Quarterback from Netflix. We saw season 1 from Ahsoka on Disney Plus, and then a fair amount of action drama from the other platforms such as Hijack, Jack Ryan, and Special Ops Lioness. We've reported on this trend for the last 18 months, and it feels clear. A single program might bring us to the platform, but it takes more than that to get us to stay. So as we continue to investigate the what makes us stay phenomenon, we are immediately taken to binging. This popular user behavior was invented by on-demand video. We see that binging behavior has a material impact on how much we'll watch on a platform. We see that the release model has this big impact, especially when it comes to series completion rates. Weekly releases and multi-part drops see roughly 38% of the viewing population stick it out to the season finale, whereas bulk release programs were 16% more likely to actually complete the series. 44% of those who start the series will actually finish it. When we compare the top shows from both release models, we actually see that the top bulk release programs are all above 55% completion rate. with season 5 of Virgin River leading the pack. A whopping 62% of households finished all 12 episodes from season 5. On the weekly releases, we see materially lower numbers and not a single program that reached the 50% completion rate. Gilded Age brushed right up against it with 49% of series viewers completing all 8 episodes of season 2. Now, binging behavior is important, but we can always binge later, right? I mean, wait for those weekly releases to add up and sit down and lose a weekend to some top-notch programming on their own time. Isn't this the promise of VOD? It's on demand. We call the shots. Well, nothing really stops us, not really, but we still don't do it. One of the few things that hasn't really changed in the on-demand revolution is that we strongly prefer to soak up content when it's new. The premiere event has weight for us, and maybe it's the water cooler talk, or maybe it's that the ads are just working wonderfully at reminding us the show exists, but we watch programs when they're shiny and new. To help showcase this, we actually revisited some findings from our H1 State of Viewership report, looked at the top 50 programs, and extended the viewership windows into H2, now a full 100 days of viewership. And we're finding that 93% of households watch the programs, these top streaming programs, in the first 50 days, and that most of the viewership, a full 76%, took place in the first 15 days of the program's premiere. We do see exceptions to this, of course. Lincoln Lawyer, Loki, these are both programs that had longer shelf lives, but generally speaking, your window to secure viewership is about 15 days post-release. Now, I have a question, and this is purely curiosity, and so this is a polling question, so thank you very much for answering here. I want to know how you discover content. What is the most common way that you are discovering a new show? Are we scrolling through titles? Are we seeing ads? Is this word of mouth, or are we going to social media? All right. We're seeing results come in. About 60 answers so far. A lot of word of mouth. Probably the top answer at 58%. And the second top answer, a disappointing, endlessly scrolling through show titles, is coming in at 20%. It's very, very, very interesting. Thank you very much for this, because of course we all discover content through all of these methods. But what we see at Samba is that one way of very consistently increasing program viewership and program discovery is through advertising. Now, I'm personally a very big believer in the future of program advertising and its vital role in content discovery. For me, there are really only 2 ways to learn about a new show. Either a friend tells me or I see an ad. Those are basically the things that work for me. And when we analyze this TV advertising impact on the viewership of these streaming programs, the impact is very stark. We see the top streaming shows, even some with incredible hype and largely built-in fan bases, are seeing dramatically stronger viewership from the advertising exposed population. So let's take a look at Only Murders, right? This is multiple seasons, a very strong fan base, still saw nearly 200% higher tune-in rates from a TV exposed population. But shows like Special Ops Lioness had staggeringly high results with 2,800% increases from those who saw the ad. The impact from advertising is material when it comes to program discovery and ultimately total viewership. So when you're designing your campaign for the launch of your new show, make sure to take advantage of this and that 15-day viewership window where we're still really interested in watching the new programs. Beyond this, I'm actually very excited to talk about this, as this is a new analysis here at Samba TV. It's the advertising halo effect. We see that program-specific advertising for shows like Reacher and Ahsoka will actually drive impact to other original programming available on these same platforms. So not only is the program creative driving those really strong lifts with overall increased viewership to the promoted program, but it's also driving a halo effect to other programs on the same platform. Now, these effects are very subtle in comparison to the 3 and 4-digit lifts we saw at the program level. Reacher, for example, drove 10% additional viewership to other Amazon Prime Video programs. But this should help us spend with a little bit of confidence, knowing that this impact is driving overall viewership to the platform above and beyond the viewership to the show being promoted. We do see Amazon topping the list here with that 10% halo effect from the Reacher ads, but we're seeing healthy 6% bumps across all of the streaming services on the ads for their top shows. Okay, let's check in with Becca and talk about the biggest TV moments from H2.
Sounds good. All right, don't be distracted by Barbie. We all know the big thing on everyone's mind right now is the actors and writers strikes and how that will impact our favorite shows. And we are already starting to see that have some repercussions on the biggest TV moments of the half. So let's dig in. On the streaming front, we saw that, per usual, Netflix was the dominant platform. I personally didn't watch many of these shows. I saw this list and sort of was like, who is Erin Carter? But people seem to like her. So looking at the programs themselves, there were some interesting trends here. We saw that 7 of the top 10 shows were docuseries or based on books or real events, which is interesting in the context of the strike, since those types of programs kind of require less of a lift from writers and scripts. And this is a trend that we expect to continue into 2024 as we continue feeling the effects of the strikes. In terms of the top genres of the half, we still saw that dramas were #1 within the top 50 programs. That was consistent with H1, but they were down 17%, while these other genres like docuseries and crime were up dramatically. Looking back, some of those dramas from the first half of the year, like Succession, The Last of Us, were super intricate and required a very heavy lift from writers, whereas again, these docuseries were a bit easier to produce. So as streamers and advertisers deal with less content, it will be essential for them to drive discovery as efficiently as possible. And one tool at their disposal is looking at the top programs and networks watched by their viewers, a product that we at Samba call audience discovery. There's always some kind of interesting standouts within this data, like the overlap of Only Murders fans watching And Just Like That. I thought that was cool. And also something Hulu, for example, should definitely keep in mind when planning for their new season. You got to hit the Samanthas out there with ads, or maybe Only Murders is more of a Charlotte show. I don't know. One kind of new and exciting trend that we've been monitoring is these big blockbuster movies going from theaters to VOD and then ultimately to streaming platforms. Take Barbie, for example. That was absolutely massive in theaters with very good reason, in my opinion. And then when it came to VOD a few months later, it was fairly low viewership. But then when it came to Max, that was again huge viewership. You can see there was an increase of almost 500% between the VOD release and the streaming release. And we do see that trajectory really across all of these movies. And we see that getting those rights is a huge win for streamers, given this massive viewership that they bring in. Switching gears, I would be remiss not to mention that there is an election coming up this year, even if I am actively trying not to think about it. But we did see some interesting trends leading up to that. So looking at the cable news networks, we saw that each of them drove their highest single-day viewership numbers in October, leading up to the November 7th election that was important in some states. And then also looking at the GOP debates that happened this year, we saw that the first one was by far the highest reaching as candidates exited after that and viewership kind of dropped across the following debates. Then another big change we've really seen take off in the past few months is live sports events moving to streaming. And one area that we deep dove into was Thursday night football on Amazon Prime. We're seeing that younger, diverse audiences who have shifted away from linear are more likely to watch live sports on streaming platforms. That means that these events are a great place for advertisers to be placing buys. You can see here we compared the viewership of Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime Video to Sunday Night Football on NBC. You can see that Amazon Prime over-indexed across Gen Z and also older millennials, while the NBC airings under-indexed. And while we're talking sports, we can't forget about the big one that just happened, the Usher concert a few weeks ago. Sorry, the Swiftie Bowl. But yes, it was the biggest big game in recent years with about 39 million households tuning in. That trifecta of football and music and Taylor Swift just really got the people going. And kind of across the board, we do see that sports is really what's keeping linear afloat. You can see there that 89 out of the top 100 linear programs of the half were related to sports, and 76% of those programs were actually NFL football, like the Super Bowl. So going back to the Super Bowl, who was driving up viewership this year? We saw increases across several groups, but which of these demos saw the biggest increase in year-over-year viewership? Was it Gen Z, Hispanic households, Black households, or millennials? Votes are coming in. It's fairly well balanced here, with Gen Z in the lead. 48% of people seem to think it was Gen Z. But the answer is actually B, Hispanic households. So this year's game was between Kansas City and San Francisco, which does have a fairly high Hispanic population, that's partially what we attribute that increase to. All right, let's switch gears here over to advertising.
All right. TV advertising, a topic that is near and dear to my heart. So let's take a moment and talk about ad waste. We can talk about Gen Z and a topic not really fit for the dinner table, politics. In H2, the top half of TV viewers saw about 150 ads per day. That's a full 92% of the TV ad load was delivered to this population. Now, the bottom half of TV viewers only saw 13 ads per day, only about 8% of the total ads served. This is a huge contrast, and it's clear that the way that we buy and measure TV ads, when combined with this dramatic shift in viewership behavior, has led to a situation that's probably undesirable for both consumers and advertisers. We might be reaching the TRP requirements for the guarantee that help us close the deal, but we are certainly not reaching our full target market utilizing these strategies. CTV and other addressable formats can help even this out. We have a ton of research here at Samba that shows how that works, but it does have to be done intentionally, and it has to ensure that you are reaching the right populations. So when you buy addressable, you want to make sure to partner with data that's not only addressing your target audience concerns, but it can help you manage your waste concerns at the same time. Now, this insight is particularly important this year for political reasons. That's the capital P political, because we have a presidential race. We see that political TV advertising actually has a very strong correlation with age, and that younger voters simply are not getting the messaging at the same rate as older generations. More than half of Gen Z and millennials are both reporting materially lower rates of political ad activity than baby boomers or silent generation households. This again calls for the need of pairing your addressable buy with the right data. Over half of independent voters don't have cable, and you need to find ways to reach them. Voters would also like to remind candidates to help keep the ad frequency low if they're looking to keep political opinions high. Now, before we go into this next section here, let's jump in with a question. For streaming movies, which movie over-indexed the most with Gen Z in H2? All right. A lot of votes for Spider-Man. Barbie's coming in hot. No one's really believing in Guardians. You guys absolutely nailed this one. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse was the highest over-indexing program for Gen Z in H2. Highest over-indexing movie, sorry, that would be. Gen Z continues to prove elusive for TV-focused advertisers. This is a population that subscription cycles. This is a population that's essentially unreachable on linear devices, and social is their go-to for content discovery. And I don't think any of those facts are surprising, but we did find a couple of things that should give us confidence about reaching Gen Z, and we wanted to make sure to share those. So Netflix is consistently their preferred streaming platform. It takes all three of the top spots for all of their streaming in H2. When Gen Z does turn to linear, it's actually more likely to be Spanish language programming. Roughly 25% of Gen Z identifies as Hispanic, and networks like Discovery Familia are high on their list of channels. We are seeing that a few advertisers are having great success reaching this demographic. This includes Paysend in financial services, as well as the rewards app Fetch. We actually have a huge amount of exactly these types of insights on other demographic populations, as well as advertiser verticals. So all of these are included in our full state of viewership report. So take a look for these types of insights, and if this is the sort of insight and data that you're hungry for. This does wrap up our insights section. So let's kind of bring it all together with some strategies to help out in 2024.
All right, to start things off here, we would recommend that everybody ride the live sports on streaming wave to reach Gen Z and millennials. We see that live sports on streaming platforms are attracting valuable audiences like Gen Z, and more streamers are starting to move in this direction. So advertisers should really be leaning into these events as well.
This next one is for the streaming platforms. Retain subscribers and use your advertising efforts smartly. Subscription cycling threatens retention, absolutely, without a doubt. And streamers really need to lean into the value of advertising for their full platform. And potentially, for the daring out there, maybe let us binge watch all the new content. We really, really like binge watching, and we'll do it if you let us.
Next up, political advertisers should reach younger audiences on OTT and FAST. We've seen time and time again, younger viewers are definitely shifting away from linear. And given how important they will be in deciding this upcoming election, political advertisers need to incorporate an omni-screen approach across mobile and CTV, and really all of the platforms at their disposal to reach these audiences.
Measurement, incredibly important, especially cross-platform reach and frequency, is your best bet to help limit that oversaturation that we were seeing as a result of linear buys. Repetitive ads can absolutely cause perceptions to worsen. This applies to brands as well as candidates. So use data, use measurement in order to make sure you're tackling your waste and your target audience problems in one fell swoop.
And finally, follow the data to stay ahead of the impact from the strikes. With limited writing resources, we're already seeing genres like docuseries and adaptations kind of pop on that top shows list, and we do expect that these trends will carry into 2024.
We don't have a lot of time left, but we do have some excellent questions, so I wanted to jump straight into them. So the very first one that came in was, what are some of the key differentiators from Samba versus our competitive set? And it was a great one, and honestly, it's a fairly tricky answer if you're not very deeply involved in TV measurement. But there's a lot of things that Samba does on the streaming, as well as streaming content, as well as streaming advertising space, that is pretty differentiating in the way that we work. We rely on our first-party data a lot more than we rely on data aggregation techniques. And as well, Samba made a substantial investment in our identity graph. We actually acquired a company about 6 years ago. So the way that we are able to link devices, both TV and non-TV devices, back to the single advertising impact is a very strong differentiator in the way that our products work. Other questions that I saw come in. Connecting fast and streaming TV data to e-com. So this is absolutely something that we do. It's one of the standard products, measurement products here at Samba TV. We do see that these impacts as well. TV advertising is a very effective way, not only to drive TV tune-in, but also to drive e-commerce sales. So we do have some data on that. If that's something that's of interest, then we can absolutely give us a call. We'd be happy to partner with you and talk to you a little bit more. Halo effect, self-advertising from the streaming services. Do we think that ads on Amazon Prime are driving more viewership to Amazon Prime? And absolutely, this is one of our very strongly suspected hypotheses, but we do see this halo effect is occurring for both linear as well as streaming ads. So this is definitely an area we're going to be doing quite a bit more research as we go. It's a relatively new analysis for us, but know that we are seeing this across all channels so far.
Probably have time for maybe one more here.
No. There's a lot of really great questions.
And we will get back to everyone with answers if we didn't get to your question. But one more here really quick. How is it that churn was up for all streamers, but so was OTT viewership for a lot of the streamers? Kind of the short answer to this is that just because someone is churning from one platform to another does not mean they're moving away from OTT as a whole. In the way that we define churn or subscription cycling, the assumption is that they're canceling one subscription, but quickly moving to another platform to watch a different program. So we see this behavior taking off and as a whole actually driving up OTT viewership.
Everyone, thank you very much for a very fun and very lively webinar today. We have insights like this and at a far deeper level within the full state of viewership report. And additionally, if you would like to see Becca and I talk a little bit more about binging behavior, we will be in New York for the Audience Time Science Conference from the Advertising Research Foundation to discuss these insights in a little bit more detail here later in March. So thank you all so much. We will follow up on all of your questions. Great questions today, and I'm sorry we didn't have enough time for all of them. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you in a few months when we'll do this again to talk about H1 Insights.